The COVID-19 pandemic has had a huge financial impact across the world. This is the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression, and the global economy is projected to actually contract in the coming weeks and months. Likewise for India, where several sectors have been severely affected. The nation had gone into lockdown mode for more than 2 months, and things began to open up in the first week of June. However, opening up and relaxing restrictions brought with it a further escalation of cases. During the pandemic, India witnessed a migrant crisis, millions of livelihoods were lost, unemployment hit its peak, and several sectors were badly hit. India's film industry is no exception. Due to the lockdown, several projects were stalled, shoot schedules cancelled, and travel plans disrupted. On this episode of Inside, we try to speak to filmmakers and actors about the trials and tribulations that members of the creative industry have had to face during the crisis. How have they tried to adapt? Have the circumstances triggered more innovative ways to working on projects? What about technicians, the support staff, and the back-end operators? What about supporting dancers and makeup artists? What about scriptwriters, ad filmmakers, and directors? Filmmaking is in itself a very diverse profession, and the impact of the pandemic and the ensuing restrictions are therefore also multifold. Times Now's Divya Babbar spoke to Avita Dutt, the writer and director of Bulbbul, which released on Netflix in June, to get a perspective.
First and foremost, congratulations on Bulbbul, which has been your directorial debut, and people are really liking it, me involved. Firstly, I would like to know, how have you been? How's the lockdown treating you?
Thank you, Divya, first of all, for saying such lovely things about the film. So the lockdown, though, is such a strange time for all of us, and so tragic in so many ways for so many people. But I have been safe and well, and so that's great. I have been using the time to write my next film. So I've been busy like that. And then, of course, Bulbbul has released, and it is a thing of great joy for me because it's my first film. I've been waiting for a long time for this to happen. So yes, so there has been hope and light and joy in this time for me.
My first question to you is that, what are the lessons that COVID-19 situation holds for filmmakers and directors?
I think everybody is deeply moved by the collateral damage that something like this has caused. For writers and directors, see, writers, I think two things happen. One is that we kind of sensitive creatures we really respond to what's going on around us. So that does make us, it rattles us at an emotional level. But on the other side, the only thing that can save us is writing, So we tell stories, we put all of what we are feeling on paper.
Parambrata Chatterjee, renowned actor who has starred in Kahani, Pari, and most recently Bulbbul, is a prominent name in Bengali cinema and also a director and producer. He gave us an insight into how both the Hindi and Bengali film industries are coping with the times.
Okay, so my very first question to you is that, what are the lessons you think that pandemic holds for the film industry across the country?
I think one thing that the pandemic situation has taught us, especially with shooting related activities starting again now, resuming now, that we have to be a lot more careful about health and safety measures in the film industry, in the film and television and web industry. Like in the shooting space, we need to be a lot more careful about our movements, our the way we go about things, the way we go about hygiene. I think it is just only making us more aware and more alert, and that is a good thing, I think.
Okay. And as we talk about going out internationally, traveling, my question to you would be that, given that there appears to be no immediate end in sight for this crisis, how do filmmakers and actors work with social distancing regulations and travel restrictions? Would this mean that the scripts that have already been written have to be rewritten, sequences rethought?
So if there are scripts written in mind, written with foreign travel in mind, either they have to be rewritten or they have to be, one has to wait people have to wait for until the situation, if not normalizes, at least gets better. And as far as the other part of his concern is social distancing while resuming shooting related activities. I think the actors are a bit at risk. There's no doubt about that, because at the end of the day, when you're shooting with actors, I mean, yeah, we are all kind of maintaining safe distance from each other while working, even while like shooting as co-actors, but that is possible only to a certain limit. It cannot be practiced all the time. It is not aesthetically, creatively, it is not always possible. I have to put in a word here for the resumption of shoot that has happened in West Bengal here. I think West Bengal has emerged to be the first state to resume shoot, and the amount of protection and care being taken, the regular rounds of sanitization being done, I think all said and done, I think it's really commendable what is being done and the way it is being done.
Okay, and if we talk about the past 3 months, logistically, how would you say, how difficult has it been for actors and filmmakers?
Well, see, when you say actors and filmmakers, you are actually talking about a whole gamut of people, in the sense that there are people up the ladder, like there are people up the stratas, where people are privileged who can wait maybe 3, 4, 5, 6 months and decide not to work. But then actors also would mean like actors who work in relatively smaller roles, in character roles. There's a whole separate almost workforce of junior actors, junior artists who need really to work on a daily basis to survive. So it has been extremely difficult for them. Not just actors. I mean, there's a whole huge number of technicians who have to really work every day to earn their wage. And that is what, in most cases, they happen to be the only wage earner, bread earner, whatever you call it, in their families. It's been very difficult for them. And that is exactly the reason why, while keeping all the safety measures in place, the work needed to resume.
Yes. Yes.
Bauddhayan Mukherji of Little Lamb Films, who is planning for his upcoming project Morid Jhapi, shared his own experience of how filmmakers like him are coming to grips with the challenges that the lockdown and the restrictions are throwing up.
See, I can talk about the advertising film industry where I primarily belong to. So work has drastically gone down, for sure. So when it started around, we last shot on the 18th of March. Post that, I have not stepped out of the house, but thankfully we have done a lot of work. But again, we have managed to cope with the situation. But one thing is for sure is that work has gone down, budgets have gone down. So the only part of the film industry which has kind of managed to stay afloat is the post-production industry. So if you look at the editors and online editors and music directors, sound engineers, they have kind of managed to stay afloat because work has carried on. Proper shoots have never happened, but we initially started off with doing films with user-generated footage. I was the first one in the country to do a work-from-home film on the 21st of March for Unilever. There, a lot of Unilever employees sent us clips, and we created a film. Post that, things became more and more complex, and only when we did Red Label, people realized that storytelling is still possible in this environment. The other thing which has also happened, Divya, is that apart from there being no work, a lot of people have hidden behind the pandemic and not paid dues to a lot of people. So the problem has been magnified, and I don't know. It's a lose-lose situation for a lot of people.
We also spoke to Adil Hussain, National Award-winning actor, about how the restrictions have impacted him and actors generally.
How have you been? My very first question to you is that how have you been during this lockdown?
How do I look? It had been a very revelatory experience for me. because I haven't been home this long for a long, long time. Maybe in last 7 or 8 years, I haven't been home more than like 1 month, and it's quite something because we have a son, and the bonding and what he likes, what he dislikes, and all his idiosyncrasies and his, So that way, I think that I'm trying and being to be the father, at home and available for his whatever way that he is trying to get in touch with me. And also the fact that, on a serious note, it is a crisis across the globe, and each individual would react or respond. And responding to a situation like this, if it is a self-imposed one, it's different, but it is a compelled one, a kind of a lockdown, that you are not allowed to go out or meet or even touch people who apart from the family members, which is something. I'm a very physically tactile person, So, of course, I can touch my wife and our kid. So the most valuable, I guess, is reflection and realization is that I have found, which I had been practicing for last 20 years, I found a tool and a mechanism within that outside conditions, of course, trigger a lot of emotions within and mental conditions, but that we have a mechanism within, because also of the nature of the work that I do. At the drop of a hat, I have to laugh or cry or be angry or get irritated and all that. So I have discovered this, that is such a fulfilling and satisfying discovery that, oh my God, why do I have to depend on a director to say action and I have to laugh? Why can't I say action to myself and I laugh? Why should I have to get paid to laugh? Before doing films, I did theater where I wasn't paid even. For like 30 years, I did theater, and last 10 years, I had been doing films. So my experience on the stage is extremely unpaid. I mean, it's like barely survived. So that, I would say, that the most precious discovery, that I don't need to depend on somebody else for my inner quietude or peace. I can, of course, I do get irritated, but way less. The intensity is less and it doesn't last long. It becomes suddenly, Adil, just say action. Of course, using the tools, the practice of it had been the most crucial aspect to reach to this understanding, awareness, and be able to do it.
That is clearly a very, very beautiful thought, that why does one have to be paid to, smile and laugh when you can do it all on your own?
Ashoke Pandit is a filmmaker and president of the Indian Film and TV Directors Association, and he shared with us the frustrations of joblessness, unpaid wages, and stalled commitments that members of the industry have faced during this difficult period.
As someone who heads the Federation of Western India Cine employees, what's been the impact of the pandemic in terms of unemployment or lack of employment for makeup artists, supporting dancers, a member of the crew, other than actors, directors, and filmmakers?
You see, we have about 32 crafts, in the industry. Now, unfortunately, our industry, all these crafts are basically daily wage workers. See, if you work, you're paid. If you don't work, you're not paid. So as soon as the work stopped, unfortunately, the entire industry collapsed. Right from top to bottom, and all the crafts, whether not only the technicians, even the producers have collapsed, because producers are basically the support structure. They are a platform where everybody gets their bread and butter. So, well, there are certain producers who have a holding capacity. There are certain producers who are on loan, who have taken a lot of crores of loans to complete their projects or whatever it is. So they have their own problem, and we as technicians, we as craftsmen have our own problems, because we don't have that kind of holding capacity. I think about 75 to 80% of the craftsmen, the technicians, are in bad shape, because they have lost, and that's why most of our workers have migrated to their small towns, like our light boys, pot boys, carpenters, assistant directors, assistant makeup mans, hairdressers. Lot of people have gone back to their place because they didn't have anything to survive hereupon, because there was no money.
Shashank Chaturvedi of Good Morning Films, who produced a compelling ad, The Hidden Truth, a lockdown film, which is a campaign against domestic violence, has been busy during the lockdown amid restrictions. He spoke to us about the key to adapt to changing circumstances and how technology has enabled him to continue producing content despite distances and logistical headaches.
I think what I have learned as a filmmaker is to be more adaptive. These are times to kind of adapt, and because it's we come from a background where we have like lots of baggages. We work in close proximity with people like DOPs and art directors and all that. So definitely it's been a very different experience in terms of being adaptive and becoming more innovative. So that's what I think that's really one of the lessons I've learned, that you have to let go of your past and start looking into the future, if this is going to be for some time.
What happens to the shoots that are lined up internationally, since there are a lot of travel restrictions involved now? What about those shoots?
Right. So I shot a commercial recently, which I shot in Malaysia. Again, it was again a remote shoot where I was on a Zoom call. And so what they had done is, like, we had put up an entire set. I had a whole recce done on FaceTime, which is ridiculous, but we did it. So we did a FaceTime recce of the place. We kind of set up angles. Then I created a mock shoot before getting into a shoot. So I kind of rehearsed the whole shoot, so to set up an angle, and then eventually went and shot, and we got a live feed on a Zoom call.
Okay, and how would you say it is different from shooting when you have all the equipments, all the logistics available, and shooting during the pandemic? I mean, of course, it has to be way different and way more difficult.
No, absolutely. I mean, when you're like used to like I said, like 150 unit, or you have the correct light, you have the correct DOP, you have everyone perfectly in sync, it's a different ballgame. But having said that, I mean, of course, it's a vast difference. But having said that, like I said, stories still need to be told, and we need to be more innovative and not take a step back. Like, okay, we will not produce films anymore. We should, I think, rather take it like a challenge. And if you have a story to tell, I'm sure medium will not restrict you. If you can say a good story, you can say a good story. So I believe in that.
Tanveer Bookwala of Ding Entertainment and creative producer of the series Ras Bhari, starring Swara Bhaskar, summed it up very well when he spoke of having to live with the COVID-19 reality being the new normal and the conceptual changes that it has triggered among filmmakers and producers in their approaches.
Well, lots of lessons, I would think so, because this is a new normal. Look at the size of my hair to begin with. We're all living in a strange time. We're doing Zoom calls, and normally I'll be sitting in a studio and doing this interview with you. But lots of lessons. Yeah, we've got to re-examine the way material is made. We have very large sets which have to now be reconsidered. For anybody that's actually been on a film set in India, will realize how unhygienic it is.
Yeah.
So these are things granted we are all re-looking at here now. The power of storytelling has to change. The kind of stories we tell have to change. This is a new normal. We cannot tomorrow make a show that doesn't reference a pandemic like that, because it would not be real. It would be fantasy. So there are lots of things to be learned. There are lots of amazing sort of little insights that we've got. We've kept closer to people. We built better networks. We're approaching problems as a group. There is some amount of unity in the system. So yeah, these are really nice.
Okay. And like you mentioned, this is the new normal that we are all living in. How are filmmakers, producers, directors adapting to the social distancing regulations and restrictions around travel, etc.? I mean, one cannot travel internationally right now.
Yes,
Does this mean
yes.
that the scripts that have already been written have to be rewritten, stories have to, and sequences and everything has to be reimagined in a certain way so that they can be produced remotely?
No, not really. Yeah. See, I'll tell you for the bigger shows. I have a show coming up. I'll tell you. I have a show called Apharan that we're going to start shooting. Right now, in the way that it's written, the show is set in it's set in a Asian country outside of Bombay, and it is so written into the script that it would rob the essence. It would take away from the experience. So we are opting to hold it. We want to like wait a while. We'd rather offer the experience to people. And flights will open. Yeah, aaj nahi to kal. Like I'll give you an example. I shot a show called Asur some time back. We had a sequence where there was a whole bunch of people in a nightclub, and in the middle of it was a murder. We had like 200 extras. You can't do that today. You cannot have 200 extras in a scene. So we are keeping all that in mind. We are rewriting the new normal as we speak. But the bigger shows, I think, bigger films, bigger shows, they'll all hold on. Yeah.
Theatrical releases have been put on hold due to restrictions on malls and multiplexes, and OTT platforms have emerged in many ways as the go-to arena for new projects. Everyone's hoping for a semblance of normalcy to be restored. Some projections have predicted a peak for India towards the end of July, after which the number of active cases in the country are expected to fall. But these are just projections. Whatever happens in the future, COVID-19 has left its mark, for the worse. However, the experience has brought with it some compelling examples of resilience, and the film industry in the country has had its own stories to share.